Lonely stretches of road, endless darkness, strange figures appearing and disappearing in the night. These are the haunted highways where reality twists into nightmare. Tonight, we're diving into 5 terrifying true stories of ghostly encounters on some of the world's most infamous roads. Buckle up. This is going to be a chilling ride. Story 1. The Ghost Road of A75, Scotland. Stretching through Dumfries and Galloway in southwest Scotland, the A75 is infamous for its reputation as the Ghost Road. For over 50 years, this eerie stretch of highway has been the site of countless supernatural encounters that defy explanation, leaving drivers shaken and skeptics questioning reality. One of the earliest and most chilling accounts dates back to the 1960s. A couple was driving late at night, the moonlight barely illuminating the desolate road ahead. Suddenly, the couple was startled by the appearance of a bizarre scene, an entire procession of figures crossing the road. These figures were semi-transparent, like phantoms, and seemed to be from another time. Men in old-fashioned clothing pushed carts laden with goods, while others led animals like cows and horses. Even children were among them, holding hands as they shuffled silently across the pavement. The couple slowed down, staring in disbelief, but as their car approached the figures, the entire procession vanished into thin air. But the ghostly apparitions on the A75 aren't limited to scenes from the past. In more recent years, drivers have reported encounters with individual figures, some so vivid they believe they're about to cause an accident. Take the account of a delivery driver named Michael in the early 2000s. Michael was driving along the A75 in the dead of night when he suddenly saw a man standing in the middle of the road. The figure was dressed in ragged clothing, his face obscured by shadows. Michael slammed on his brakes, his heart racing as he swerved to avoid hitting the man. As the truck screeched to a halt, Michael jumped out, flashlight in hand, to check if the man was hurt, but the road was empty. Michael searched the area, calling out into the darkness, but there was no response, no sign of anyone at all. Shaken, he got back into his truck, only to find the air inside had turned icy cold, sending chills down his spine. He later discovered that other drivers had reported seeing the same man in the same spot, always standing silently in the middle of the road before disappearing without a trace. For many, the most disturbing aspect of the A75 isn't just the apparitions themselves, but the feelings they evoke. Drivers frequently describe a suffocating sense of dread that settles over them as they traverse the road at night. Some report hearing disembodied whispers or the faint sound of footsteps alongside their vehicles, even though the road is deserted. One chilling tale involves a man named Graham, who was traveling home after visiting family. As he drove along the A75, he noticed something darting across the road up ahead. Thinking it was an animal, he slowed down, only to see a figure emerge from the bushes. It was a woman, pale and disheveled, her eyes wide with fear. Graham stopped and rolled down his window to ask if she needed help. The woman didn't respond. Instead, she pointed toward the woods with a trembling hand. Before Graham could say anything else, she vanished before his eyes. Moments later, he heard a loud bang on the side of his car. Panicking, he sped away and didn't stop until he reached a gas station miles down the road. Upon inspecting his car, he found a dent in the passenger door and scratches along the side, as if someone, or something, had clawed at the metal. Locals have their own theories about the A75's hauntings. Some believe the road was built on ancient land steeped in tragedy, its history seeping into the present. Others suggest that the apparitions are echoes of the past, spirits caught in a liminal space where time no longer holds meaning. Whatever the explanation, the A75 remains one of Scotland's most haunted locations, a place where the veil between the living and the dead is thinner than anywhere else. If you ever find yourself traveling this dark and lonely highway, keep your eyes on the road and pray you don't encounter what so many others have. Story 2. Route 666, the Devil's Highway, USA, dubbed the Devil's Highway. Route 666 is one of the most infamous stretches of road in the United States. Running through the rugged, sun-scorched deserts of the American Southwest, this highway's reputation is drenched in fear and folklore. Though the route was renumbered to U.S. Route 491 in 2003 to shake its cursed association, tales of supernatural encounters and eerie phenomena still haunt its asphalt. The lore of Route 666 begins with its name, which some believe invites dark forces to dwell along the road. It stretches through remote and barren landscapes, where help is often miles away, and it's not uncommon for travelers to find themselves alone with their thoughts, and perhaps something more sinister. One of the most chilling stories associated with Route 666 involves a phenomenon known as the phantom semi. Numerous drivers have reported seeing a massive, menacing truck barreling down the road at impossible speeds, its headlights blindingly bright in the darkness. The truck doesn't seem bound by the laws of physics. It swerves erratically, seemingly intent on forcing cars off the road. Consider the experience of a man named Jake, who was driving from Gallup, New Mexico to Monticello, Utah, late one night. Jake recalled seeing headlights in his rearview mirror growing brighter by the second. Within moments, a hulking semi-truck was tailgating him, its engine roaring like a beast. Panicked, Jake sped up, but no matter how fast he drove, the truck stayed on his tail. As Jake approached a curve, the truck surged forward, attempting to overtake him. He swerved, his tires screeching against the asphalt, and narrowly avoided skidding into the desert. When he looked back, the truck was gone, vanished into the night as if it had never been there. Jake later learned he wasn't alone in his experience. Dozens of travelers have encountered the phantom semi, and some believe it's an omen of death, warning those who see it to leave the highway immediately. Another spine-chilling tale involves shadowy figures that appear along the roadside. Drivers have reported seeing strange humanoid shapes standing still, their dark silhouettes barely visible against the moonlit desert. But these figures aren't stationary for long. Travelers recount seeing them suddenly dart across the road or even appear to chase their vehicles at unnatural speeds. One story comes from a woman named Clara, who was driving alone late one evening. She noticed a figure on the side of the road in the distance, standing unnervingly still. As her car drew closer, the figure began to move, stepping onto the road directly in her path. Clara slammed on her brakes, but before her car could hit the figure, it disappeared. Her heart pounding, she cautiously resumed her drive, only to feel a sudden, cold presence in the back seat of her car. Clara didn't dare look in the rearview mirror, but the overwhelming sense of being watched stayed with her until she reached the next town. Perhaps the most disturbing legend of Route 666 involves a mysterious black dog known as the Hound of Hell. Unlike typical ghostly apparitions, this creature is said to be corporeal and aggressive. It's described as a large jet-black dog with glowing red eyes, appearing out of nowhere to stalk unsuspecting travelers. One man, David, was driving with a friend when they spotted a pair of glowing eyes just off the side of the road. Assuming it was a coyote, they kept driving, only to notice the eyes moving closer. The massive dog emerged, running alongside their car, its claws scraping against the pavement. David floored the accelerator, but the creature kept pace, snarling and baring its sharp teeth. When the car finally outpaced the hound, it disappeared into the night as suddenly as it had appeared. Locals believe that seeing the black dog is a harbinger of doom, with many who encounter it experiencing misfortune shortly afterward. Whether it's the phantom semi, shadowy figures, or the Hound of Hell, Route 666 is a road where reality seems to warp, and the ordinary transforms into the terrifying. Travelers are advised to avoid the highway at night, lest they encounter the malevolent forces that seem to call this stretch of asphalt home. The renaming of Route 666 may have removed the overt connection to its diabolical moniker, but its dark reputation endures. For those brave or foolish enough to drive it, one thing is certain: the Devil's Highway lives up to its name, and once you've traveled it, you'll never look at a lonely stretch of road the same way again. Story 3. The Phantom Hitchhiker of N9 Road, South Africa. The N9 Road, stretching across the hauntingly beautiful landscapes of South Africa, is known for its serene views of rolling hills and open plains. But as night falls and the shadows deepen, this highway becomes the stage for one of the country's most chilling ghost stories. Travelers along the N9 road have shared eerie encounters with a ghostly hitchhiker, an apparition that has puzzled and terrified locals and visitors alike for decades. The story of the phantom hitchhiker begins near a lonely stretch of road that passes through the Karoo, a vast, arid region that feels desolate even during the day. At night, the highway transforms into a seemingly endless ribbon of darkness, where the only light comes from the moon and the faint glow of your car's headlights. It's in this unsettling stillness that drivers claim to see him. A man dressed in old, tattered clothing standing by the side of the road, his thumb extended in the universal gesture for a ride. One of the earliest documented sightings occurred in the 1970s. A truck driver making a late-night delivery reported picking up a young man on the side of the road. The hitchhiker seemed harmless at first, polite, though eerily quiet. He climbed into the cab, sat silently, and kept his gaze fixed on the horizon. When the driver tried to strike up a conversation, the hitchhiker would only nod or shake his head. After several miles, the driver looked away for a moment, and when he glanced back, the passenger was gone. The truck's doors were still locked, and the road stretched endlessly in both directions, with no sign of the mysterious man. Since then, countless others have reported similar encounters. The hitchhiker appears at various points along the N9, often near the same stretches of road where fatal accidents have occurred. Some drivers claim they see him standing by the roadside, only to vanish as they approach. Others report stopping to offer him a ride, only for him to disappear mid-journey. In every account, the man's face is described as pale and sorrowful, his eyes carrying the weight of untold tragedy. Theories about the hitchhiker's identity abound. Some believe he was a soldier who died during the Anglo-Boer War, his spirit doomed to wander the Karoo's lonely highways. Others think he may have been a local traveler who died in a tragic accident, unable to move on because his death was so sudden and violent. Some spiritualists suggest that the hitchhiker isn't tied to a single person at all, but is instead a manifestation of the collective grief and tragedy associated with the N9 road. One chilling encounter comes from a family traveling to visit relatives in a nearby town. Driving late at night, they spotted the hitchhiker standing near a bend in the road. Feeling a pang of guilt for leaving someone stranded in such an isolated area, they pulled over to offer him a ride. The man climbed into the back seat, quietly thanking them. For the next 20 minutes, he sat in silence, staring out the window. Suddenly, the temperature inside the car dropped sharply, and the parents turned to check on their passenger, only to find the seat empty. The children, who had been sitting next to the hitchhiker, swore they'd seen him fade into thin air. What makes the phantom hitchhiker even more unsettling is that his appearances are often accompanied by an inexplicable sense of dread. Some drivers report their radios cutting out or their headlights flickering as they approach the area where he's been seen. Others claim that the hitchhiker brings a warning. Those who see him often experience mechanical failures, narrowly avoiding accidents that could have been fatal. In one particularly harrowing tale, a solo traveler driving at night felt compelled to pull over near the spot where the hitchhiker is most often seen. As he slowed down, his headlights illuminated a figure standing in the middle of the road, staring directly at him. The traveler hit the brakes, but when he got out to investigate, the figure was gone. Moments later, a truck came barreling around the bend, missing the traveler's car by inches. He believes to this day that the hitchhiker saved his life. Whether the phantom hitchhiker is a benevolent spirit or a restless soul remains a mystery, but one thing is certain. His legend has left an indelible mark on those who've driven the N9 road. The next time you find yourself traveling this desolate stretch of highway, keep your eyes on the road and the rearview mirror. You never know who or what might be hitching a ride. Story 4. The Devil's Bend on E8, Norway's haunted highway. Deep within the rugged terrain of northern Norway, where the E8 highway snakes through dense forests and snow-covered mountains, lies a stretch of road locals call the Devil's Bend. The name alone is enough to send shivers down your spine, but the chilling tales associated with this infamous curve are what truly give it its fearsome reputation. This isolated stretch of highway, often cloaked in mist and darkness, has been the site of countless accidents over the years. Many of these crashes remain unexplained, leading locals to believe that something sinister lurks in the shadows. Travelers brave enough to drive through Devil's Bend at night often report strange occurrences. Phantom figures appearing on the road, ghostly whispers in the wind, and an overwhelming sense of dread that tightens like a noose as they approach the bend. One of the most enduring legends is that of the Woman in White, a ghostly figure said to haunt Devil's Bend. She is described as a pale, sorrowful woman dressed in a flowing white gown, her face obscured by a veil. According to local law, she was a bride traveling to her wedding in the late 19th century when her carriage skidded off the icy road, plunging into the icy waters below. Both she and her groom perished that fateful day, but her restless spirit is said to have remained, searching for her lost love. Drivers who encounter her tell eerily similar stories. She appears suddenly on the side of the road, her hand outstretched in a plea for help. Some claim that if you stop to pick her up, she climbs into the back seat without a word, her icy presence chilling the air. But as you drive on, she vanishes without a trace, leaving only a faint, haunting wail behind. One chilling account comes from a truck driver who was making a late-night delivery on the E8. As he neared Devil's Bend, his headlights illuminated a figure standing in the middle of the road. He slammed on the brakes, narrowly avoiding a collision. Stepping out of his truck to check if the figure was hurt, he found no one there. Confused, he returned to his vehicle, only to see the Woman in White sitting silently in the passenger seat. Panicked, he swerved off the road, crashing into a tree. When rescuers arrived hours later, the driver insisted he wasn't alone in the truck, though no one else was found. But the Woman in White isn't the only eerie presence on Devil's Bend. Many locals speak of a spectral carriage that appears during snowstorms. Pulled by ghostly horses, the carriage is said to glide soundlessly through the snow, its wheels leaving no tracks. Witnesses report hearing the distant sound of hooves and a faint, mournful melody accompanying the carriage's passage. Those who have seen it say it's best to look away and never follow it, for those who do are said to disappear without a trace, swallowed by the icy wilderness. The area surrounding Devil's Bend is steeped in mystery, with stories of eerie lights flickering in the trees and an inexplicable drop in temperature as you approach the curve. Some attribute the hauntings to the tragic accidents that have occurred there, while others believe the land itself is cursed. The highway cuts through a region that was once considered sacred by the indigenous Sami people, who warned that disturbing the land would awaken restless spirits. Perhaps the most harrowing tale tied to Devil's Bend is that of a family who set out on a road trip one winter evening, eager to catch the northern lights. As they neared the curve, their car suddenly stalled, the engine sputtering to a halt. Stranded in the freezing cold, they saw a faint light approaching from the distance. Thinking it was another vehicle, they waved for help. But as the light drew closer, they realized it was a lantern held by a figure in an old-fashioned coat. The figure approached the car, peered inside, and smiled, a grin so wide it seemed unnatural. Terrified, the family locked the doors and looked away. But when they turned back, the figure had vanished, and their car started again as if nothing had happened. The Devil's Bend on E8 remains one of Norway's most unnerving locations, a place where the veil between the living and the dead feels dangerously thin. Travelers who dare to journey through its dark, winding path are often left with more questions than answers, and stories they'll never forget. So, the next time you find yourself on the E8, keep your eyes on the road and your thoughts clear. And if you see a pale woman in white by the roadside, remember, not all who seek a ride are looking for a destination. Story 5. The Lady of the Manila-Bataan Road, Philippines. The Manila-Bataan Road, Winding through the lush, tropical countryside of the Philippines is a lifeline connecting bustling cities and quiet coastal towns. But when the sun sets and the stars emerge, this road transforms into a chilling corridor of ghostly lore, home to one of the country's most infamous apparitions, the Lady of the Manila-Bataan Road. Her spectral presence has terrified countless travelers, earning her a fearsome reputation as a restless spirit seeking justice or solace. The legend of the lady dates back decades, with stories passed down through generations. Locals believe she was a young woman tragically killed during the Japanese occupation of the Philippines in World War II. Some accounts say she was a nurse caught in the crossfire, while others suggest she was a civilian abducted and killed by soldiers. Her death, whether accidental or deliberate, was so violent and unjust that her spirit has lingered ever since, haunting the road where her life was cruelly cut short. Drivers traveling alone at night often report seeing a beautiful woman in a white dress standing by the roadside. Her long black hair cascades over her shoulders, and her face is pale and somber, though undeniably striking. She appears as a hitchhiker, extending her arm to flag down passing vehicles. At first glance, she seems real, so real that drivers often stop without hesitation, compelled by her forlorn expression and apparent vulnerability. One of the most famous accounts comes from a bus driver who was making his nightly route along the road. He noticed a woman standing at the edge of the highway, her white dress glowing faintly in the moonlight. Feeling pity for her, he stopped and opened the door. The woman silently climbed aboard, taking a seat at the back of the bus. When the driver glanced in the rearview mirror moments later, the woman was gone. Only a faint scent of flowers remained, lingering in the air like a ghostly calling card. What makes the lady's appearances particularly unsettling is the sense of unease she brings. Drivers who pick her up often report strange occurrences, radios flickering on and off, the temperature in the car dropping to an icy chill, or the steering wheel becoming inexplicably heavy, as if unseen forces are trying to wrest control. Some say she vanishes in the middle of a ride, leaving behind only a cold, oppressive silence. There are even stories of near-fatal accidents attributed to the lady. In one account, a motorist saw her standing in the middle of the road late at night. Startled, he swerved sharply to avoid hitting her, only to crash into a ditch. When he stumbled out of the wreckage, dazed and injured, he looked back toward the road. There she was, standing perfectly still, her piercing gaze fixed on him before she disappeared into the darkness. Locals have their own theories about the lady's motives. Some believe she's a guardian spirit, appearing to warn travelers of impending danger. Others think she seeks revenge for the injustice of her death, luring unsuspecting drivers to their doom. A few even say she's searching for someone, perhaps a loved one lost during the war, or even the person responsible for her demise. One of the eeriest tales comes from a group of friends returning home after a night out. They were driving along the Manila-Bataan Road when they spotted the lady standing by the roadside. Thinking it was a prank, they joked about stopping to offer her a ride. But as their car passed her, the lady turned to face them, her dark eyes locking onto theirs. Moments later, the car's engine sputtered and died. The group sat in stunned silence, their laughter replaced by an overwhelming sense of dread. When the car finally restarted, they drove away as fast as they could, glancing nervously in the mirrors to make sure she wasn't following them. Despite her fearsome reputation, some say the lady's presence isn't entirely malevolent. There are stories of drivers who claim she saved their lives, appearing just in time to prevent them from colliding with an unseen hazard or warning them of treacherous conditions ahead. One man recounted how he saw her standing on the side of the road, waving frantically as he approached a sharp curve. Slowing down to avoid her, he discovered a broken-down truck blocking the road just beyond the bend, a potentially fatal obstacle he would have missed had it not been for the mysterious woman. Today, the Lady of the Manila-Bataan Road remains an enduring legend, a symbol of the untold stories and unresolved tragedies of the past. Her presence is a chilling reminder of how the horrors of history can leave an indelible mark, not just on the living, but on the very places where those horrors unfolded. For travelers brave enough to drive the Manila-Bataan Road at night, one piece of advice is often given. If you see a woman in white by the roadside, don't stop. But if you do, remember, she might be more than just a ghost. She might be a witness to the darkness of history, a spirit trapped between worlds, forever walking the lonely highway in search of peace. Haunted highways are a reminder that the road is never as empty as it seems. Whether it's a ghostly hitchhiker, a demonic hound, or a spectral passenger, these stories will stay with you long after the journey is over. Do you have a spine-chilling road story to share? Leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe to Hauntline and hit the notification bell for more terrifying tales from the paranormal world. Until next time, drive safely and stay spooky.